Hey y'all! Thought we'd pop in today to talk about working with knit fabrics, specifically needles and pins, and why those tiny tools can make or break your project. Now, if you've been hanging out with me for a bit, you already know that knits are kind of their own beast. They're soft, they're stretchy, they're comfortable, and they are also surprisingly easy to damage if you treat them like woven fabric. And that's where a lot of frustration starts. Because if you're used to quilting cottons or even cross stitch fabric, your instincts are going to tell you fabric is fabric. I know how this works. And then suddenly you're working with a knit and things start going sideways. Seams pop and stitches skip. Edges start to curl. And the worst of all, you get those little runs in the fabric that just keep going. So today I want to slow things down and talk about something really small, but really important. The tools that actually touch your fabric. Your pins and your needles. Let's start with pins, because this is usually the first place people run into trouble. When you're working with woven fabric, pins are your best friend. You stick them in, they hold everything in place, and life is good. But knit fabrics are built differently. Instead of being tightly woven threads going over and under each other, they're made of loops. Think of it like a series of interconnected little chains. And those loops are what give knit fabric its stretch. But they're also what makes it vulnerable. When you push a sharp pin through those loops, you're not just holding fabric together. You're potentially breaking the structure of those loops. And once that loop is compromised, it can start to run. Just like a snag in a sweater that slowly turns into a long ladder down the fabric. Now, does that mean you can never use pins on knits? Not necessarily. But it does mean you need to be a lot more intentional. You want to minimize how much you're piercing the fabric, and you want to avoid dragging pins through the material. That's why a lot of people switch to alternatives like clips when working with knit fabrics. Clips hold everything in place without piercing the fabric at all, which completely removes the risk. But even if you're careful with your pins, there's another tool that a lot of people don't think about, and that's your sewing machine needle. Because every single stitch you make is a needle going through the fabric, over and over and over again. And if you're using the wrong needle, you're basically poking tiny holes in all the wrong places. A standard sewing needle is sharp. It's designed to pierce woven fabric cleanly. And for woven fabric, that's perfect. But for knits, that sharp tip can actually cut through the loops instead of sliding between them. And that's where problems start showing up in your seams. You might notice skip stitches where the machine just doesn't catch the thread properly. Or seams that look fine at first, but when you stretch the fabric, you suddenly hear that little pop as the thread gives way. Or worse, the fabric itself starts to weaken along the seam line. And at that point, it's not just frustrating, it can ruin the project entirely. So what's the fix? That's where ballpoint needles come in. Ballpoint needles are specifically designed for knit fabrics, and the difference is in the tip. Instead of being sharp, the tip is rounded. So instead of piercing through the fibers, it gently pushes between the loops. Think of it like the difference between cutting through something and slipping between something. One damages the structure, the other works with it. And that one small change makes a huge difference. You'll get smoother stitching, fewer skip stitches, and your seams will actually hold up when the fabric stretches. If you've ever had a knit project where the seams just didn't feel reliable, there's a very good chance the needle was the issue. And the nice thing is, ballpoint needles are easy to find. They're usually labeled clearly as being for knits, so you don't have to go hunting for anything complicated. Now, while we're talking about seams holding up, we also need to talk about thread. Because even if your needle is perfect, your thread still has a job to do. And this is another place where people tend to default to what they already have on hand. A lot of us have cotton thread sitting around. It's common, it works great for a lot of projects, and it feels like a safe choice. But cotton thread doesn't have much stretch to it. So when you use it on a knit fabric, you're pairing a stretchy material with a thread that doesn't want to stretch. And you can probably see where that's going. As soon as the fabric moves, whether that's while you're wearing it or washing it or even just handling it, the thread takes the strain. And eventually, it can snap. That's when you get seams that pop open, even though everything looked fine when you finished sewing. That's why polyester thread is usually the better choice for knits. Polyester has a little bit of give to it. It's stronger and it can move with the fabric instead of fighting against it. So when your knit stretches, your seam stretches along with it. And that's exactly what you want. Now, none of this is complicated. It's not about learning a whole new technique or buying a bunch of fancy tools. It's really about understanding what your material needs and making small adjustments to support it. Because knits aren't difficult, they're just different. And once you respect that difference, they actually become really enjoyable to work with. You get that softness, that flexibility, that comfort, all without the frustration. So before you start your next knit project, take a minute to check your setup. Look at your pins. Ask yourself if you really need them, or if there's a gentler way to hold your fabric. Check your needle. Make sure you're using a ballpoint instead of a universal or a sharp. And take a look at your thread. If you've been using cotton, consider switching to polyester and see how it changes your results. Because those are the kind of small changes that save you from big headaches. They're the difference between a project that fights you the whole way and one that just works. And honestly, there's nothing better than that moment when everything just works. Well, y'all, that's about it. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a knit project go sideways on you, or if switching needles made a difference for you. Happy stitching!